We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are going to be talking about Anthony Bourdain's watches and how you can buy them at auction right now. That's right, Anthony Bourdain's watches are available at auction right now. We're going to talk about it. But first, I'd like to thank you for coming back for another episode. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. And also, YouTube is revising their algorithm. It's fair to say that a lot of people are talking about this now. Things are being changed a lot, and so I really do hope that you also give a thumbs up because it helps me and I keep making more content and we can do this together. Do not forget to leave in the comments below things you'd like to see in the future. I really do go through it, and it is pretty fun going back and forth about these watch topics. Okay guys, today on my wrist I have a ceramic bezel Omega Seamaster with the flat blue dial. This is the last gen on an aftermarket rubber strap. I really like this thing for a casual Friday here in South Florida at delraywatch.com office. It's just a great watch to kind of, dress down and play around with. Really great watch that I always recommend, and it's not on the list. So, Anthony Bourdain. If you're not familiar, he's a very popular chef, or he was rather, unfortunately. He was a chef. He was very popular with TV. He was an author and so many more things. Also a celebrity, a businessman. The list goes on and on. Unfortunately, somewhat recently, in recent times, I guess I should say, not too long ago, he unfortunately did pass away. So it is a very sad and somber occasion. And currently what's going on right now is that his watches are available for sale. A lot of his personal items are available for sale. It looks like there's a very big auction that's going on for a lot of his art, furniture, artifacts, things like that. So even though it is a very sad and somber occasion, if you are a very big Anthony Bourdain fan, and I know many people out there are, he touched a lot of people, especially with his TV shows, you can get some of his precious items here, including the watches, which we are going to talk about right now. So the first watch is a 1930s Rolex wire lug watch. Now, this watch comes from a time in Rolex history where the watches were just of much less quality than you would see today. When people think of Rolex, they think of, the best quality in the world, which is another topic for another time. But this particular watch is so old that it almost hasn't quite fit the mold of what we know Rolex to be today. And so it's got wire lugs, it's got 9-karat gold, which today would be unthinkable. They would just gold plate the watch or use DLC or a PVD or a coating instead. So it's 9-karat, it's timeless, it's manual wind, it's dainty, it's fragile. If you were to drop it, it would break probably. Whereas something like even the Seamaster, if you whipped it against the wall or threw it off a cliff, it would probably still run and maybe be lightly scathed at all. So something to consider. Very cool watch, and it's classic and timeless. It's also supposed to be from his father, but there's not a lot of information surrounding that. So something interesting to consider. Next on the list, we have a blue dial Rolex Oyster Perpetual. This one, I am a little bit shocked, right? We've seen videos of Anthony Bourdain. People on the forums talk about his watch collection. The interesting thing is this watch, while it's been seen, usually he's been seen wearing his lighter colored, either his silver or his I believe, white dial Oyster Perpetual. So there's many videos out there of him wearing that, but this one's a blue dial. It features an engine turn bezel. Now, if you're not familiar, you can see in the picture, the engine turn bezel is an iconic transitional into vintage timed bezel design that a lot of people really enjoy, including myself, but it does really date the watch. But if you had something like your standard bezel, it would be a little bit more modern and timeless, but this is still a very cool, iconic look. Now, this is a 34mm watch. Anthony Bourdain was, I think, 6.5 feet tall. If you look in his videos, his shows, he's a very tall guy compared to most people. So it's interesting that it shows he really did value simplicity and classic icons, classic things, considering he's a very large guy, but he's wearing a 34mm watch, which is small for someone of that size. Very interesting. I think that's cool, and I really can appreciate that mentality. The next on the list, I think the auction house drops the ball so hard with their description and details on this watch. This is, of course, a Patek Philippe Calatrava. Now, the pictures are not that good. The measurements, they say, are 33 millimeters, but if you look at the watch, it has a see-through case back, which doesn't really match up to anything. Now, if it didn't have a see-through case back, you could say that it was a Patek 3919, 33 millimeters, hobnail bezel, vintage Patek Philippe manual wind. But then if you look at it, you think about it, you're like, well, maybe that could be a 5119, but that would be 36 millimeters, and that would be basically a modern day men's watch size for dress watches. But that doesn't really make sense either, because how could they just measure it so wrong? Now, it's very likely they did, but this could also be a 7119J, which is a ladies, which has the see-through case back, which is pretty modern compared to the 3919, but that's problematic because that's 31 millimeters. So, if they get some better photographs so we really know what we're working with, I think it would really help the auction. If you're watching this from the auction house, please consider taking a little bit better photographs and also making sure to know what you're posting. But otherwise, I think the person buying this is going to be a pretty big Anthony Bourdain fan, so that might not be of biggest concern knowing what the model is. Next, we have a Filson Smokey Bear. Filson is a brand that makes hunting, camping, outdoors type gear, different kind of gear and clothing with that kind of outdoorsy theme. Think of it as a little bit more of an affordable Orvis competitor, if you're familiar. Not Oris the watch brand, but Orvis the outdoor clothing brand. When Filson came out, they had a little bit more selection, I would say, in terms of their watch offerings than they do today. Of course, with the Smokey Bear watch that we see here, remember, only you can prevent this watch from being thrown in the garbage where it belongs. I'm just kidding if you own a Filson, but in all seriousness, this brand was started by the guy that started Fossil, and this watch was made by Shinola, so it's not bad quality by any means, but they do use a lot of fake history in those brands. Shinola uses fake history. They rebooted a boot shining company's name they paid for, and they use this date that the company was started that's not real. Along with Filson as well, they produce a lot of leather goods, but the company has not been long-standing, and they create this kind of fake history. That's another topic for another time, but nonetheless, this watch is pretty cool. I would say the quality is not going to be horrible because it is made by Shinola, and they do try to do a pretty good job here in the States for the watches they do at least put together, but by and large, this will be the most overpriced hammer price of a watch at this auction. This watch should probably trade for $100 or $200 pre-owned, but here it's probably going to go for thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars. So if you're an Anthony Bourdain fan and you have to have an Anthony Bourdain watch, that's probably the one to buy because it is going to be the lowest price compared to some of these others on the list. Next, we have a Tag Heuer Monaco. Now, we all know and love Tag Heuer Monaco. Maybe not all of us love it. Maybe some of us love certain types of it, but this one is kind of the caliber 12, so pretty much their modern reboot of your traditional Monaco chronograph. Very cool watch, blue dial. Not a lot to say about it. I personally have never seen Anthony Bourdain wearing this watch in any of his videos. If you have, please leave in the comments below, because I know there's many people in the watch community that are way bigger Anthony Bourdain fans than I am. I'm just not a foodie, but leave in the comments below if you are and you know of places that he's been wearing this watch, because I'd love to see it in action. The next watch on the list is, I think, a pretty good value if you bought this pre-owned from a place like DelReyWatch.com, of course, or anywhere else on the internet. It's a Ball Fireman Storm Chaser chronograph with DLC. Now, the DLC is the coating you see here that gives it a really tough, rugged, durable black coating that's a little bit different than a PVD, which does tend to come off. So a little bit more modern, a little bit more rugged, and that's what this watch is all about. Now, Ball, they make pretty good sports watches, right? The case construction is really there in terms of their price point. Retail price points on Ball watches, they've climbed up in recent times, but generally speaking, a few $1,000s or under. If you get them pre-owned, you're going to be getting them at, 80% off of their retail in the pre-owned market, which by any stretch of the imagination is a really great deal. So considering they all use workhorse, ETA or Sellita equivalent movements, the case construction is on point. Ball has some history behind the brand, but that's not really a brand that you get into for the history. You get into this brand for the value. And by and large, I think that in terms of his collection, it makes a lot of sense to have a rugged, durable watch like this. Low-key, understated, keep timing with the chronograph for maybe some movie or video segments, things like that. But I never really saw him wear this watch either. I saw him wear the Rolex Oyster Perpetuals, and lastly, the watch that I saw him probably wear the most, and most of you as well, because you just cannot miss it, is the Panerai Radiomir 337, the PAM 337. Now, this watch is your typical Panerai Radiomir, though in the 42mm version. It has the P999 movement, which is Panerai's movement based off a Piaget manual wind movement. So the movement's great. The movement's high quality, and it's really a step in the right direction that Panerai was trying to go in, though we all know where Panerai is currently. They make good watches, they make sometimes great watches, but unfortunately, the desirability is very low because of, in my opinion, Tudor, Rolex, and so many other great offerings, including what Omega is doing in sports watches today. But this watch, it's very fair to say that when people think of Anthony Bourdain as a watch person or a watch guy, or even if he really wasn't, like let's say he said, I don't like watches, I just have them as an accessory. There's watch guys, they're still fighting for it. They're like, I know he is a watch guy. When you see watches like this on his list and some of the others, it's just so hard to deny that he had to have been a watch guy. I don't know. Leave in the comments below if you know of any interviews where he talks about his watches. But particularly this Panerai, I think really made sense for his character that he portrayed on TV, whether or not it was actually his character in real life. So, what do you guys think about these Anthony Bourdain watches? Do you like them? Do any of you own them? Do you think there's any of these that don't make sense? Do you think that I really went a little bit too hard on Filson? Now that I think about it, I think I should probably make a Filson / Shinola episode where I talk about the brand. Leave in the comments below if you'd like to see that, as well as the other things mentioned and things you'd like to see in the future. Do not forget the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And remember, the link in the description below if you would like to check out these watches or to possibly bid on them because you are a big fan of the guy. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. It's Friday. Got to wrap a few things up here. Don't forget, Instagram The Real John P. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.